Okay, so now look at the next part. Chapter 3, Who Tempted Eve? Say first of God above or man below. What can we reason but from what we know? Of man what we see, what see we but is stationed here, from which to reason or which to refer. And it is highly probable that there may have existed a dozen or more distinct races of the genus Homo, or probably the original man, and they may be in existence now. Still, it answers our purpose to recognise only 5 races, as this subdivision has already been made and is sanctioned by ethnologists of our age. They have, however, almost universally been tracked back to the same ancestor under a belief of the unity of the races, which theory attaches itself like an incubus to the fair Caucasian and brings a blush to the cheek of intelligent beauty. And the author would wipe this stain from our escutcheon, whatever that is, and set at right the inquiring mind as regards the error in question. Let not the Bible reader or the Orthodox Christian cry out, "Skeptic!" should the author attack erroneous notions entertained by them as respects the early history of the world and how the African and the Turanian crossed the destroying flood that wafted Noah's heavily freighted ark to the mountains of Ararat. The author promised that the attentive reader that he would handle the subject in the spirit of kindness and would ask him or her to divest the mind of any prejudicial views entertained on this interesting question. So plot out that you might get the impression like we did that he's a racist, supremacist, or that he's actually in support of the original man, genus Homo, being black. Okay, so he promised the attentive reader he'd handle the subject in the spirit of kindness and would like to have asked was going to ask the reader, him or her, to divest the mind on any, you get rid of these prejudices, right? Any thoughts of prejudice, racism to him or to these, stated here, entertained on this interesting question. Josephus, the great uninspired Jewish writer, tells us that Adam, it's got a footnote there, was a red man, being formed of red clay, which was the purest of earth, as though he would convey the idea to posterity that the progenitor of his race was made of no common material, and in fact of better material than any prior creation. So down the bottom here, this footnote, it has, this man was called Adam, which in the Hebrew tongue signifies one that is red, because he was formed out of red earth. For of that kind is virgin and true earth. Antiquities of Jews, page 2. So go look that up. We're not too sure, okay, if he was actually a red man as an Indian, American Indian. Or their millennium ancient forefathers, etc., etc. He may just, like this Christian identity, or guy was saying, ruddy. It means ruddy, so apparently, because only Caucasians can blush. You can't see a black man blush because obviously he's black, right? He might blush, but you can't see it. It's like a blood flowing to his cheeks. Okay, he's embarrassed, right? Where the Jews have their rule, don't embarrass another Jew because the blood rushes to his face because he's all embarrassed. You embarrassed him, and that's a form of murder. In their mindset, it's like a murder, right? You've killed the guy, you've shamed him, basically. Okay, so it's highly probable that there may have existed a dozen or more distinct races of the original man, and they may be in existence, etc., etc. Before the time of Moses, the only history of the world that existed was traditional and was handed down from sire to son, from father to son, right? Etc. Grandfather to his son, okay, and then his son passes it on to his son, etc., etc. And by this channel, together with his acquaintance with the original Hebrew, the Jewish scribe was enabled to communicate this information to those whose opportunities were not so good for acquiring knowledge of ancient history. He was named Adam because he was red, of a ruddy countenance. He was the father of the blushing race. There you go, just like we said. Only they can be seen blushing. Created he him in his own image and likeness. God created him in his own image and likeness. The only immortal soul beneath the wide expanded canopy of heaven, to whose cheeks gushed the crimson blood to manifest the intense shame of conscious guilt. And if the darker races blush, with whom we claim no kindred blood, this is what he's saying, then like the wildflower in its native wilderness, it blushes unseen and wastes its virtue on the desert air. So this guy's saying, because they're Jewish, right? Yeah, they're probably white. They're olive skin, whatever. They're white. We blush. These guys don't, right? Okay. We blush like the Caucasians do because we've got this intense shame or conscious of guilt, right? Conscious guilt. Okay. It's basically what we said earlier between the black man and the Caucasian blushing. The side of Adam gave birth to Eve. Yeah, rib, right? The mother of all living, and she, the fairest queen that ever graced the courts of earth, made her debut on the arena of life in the romantic shades of Eden, Garden of Eden, where the creeping vine threw its tendrils around the giant oak, and lovely flowers bloomed by murmuring waters in their flow to the turbid Euphrates, and where the gentle zephyr fanned her cheek and wafted the odorous sweets from nature's untrodden plains. It is not strange that Eden's garden birds should have been wearied with the monotony that daily surrounded her. The scenery had become stale to her accustomed eye and ceased to afford its wonted pleasure. The presence of Adam had no doubt become irksome, and his voice for the time had ceased to fill the aching void that agonized her tender heart. And with a desire to explore the farther limit of her terrestrial domain, she wandered far along meandering brooks. So maybe he's hinting that this Garden of Eden wasn't actually on earth. It's a paradise up in the heavens or something, right, as many claim. She wandered far along the meandering brooks and plucked strange flowers to while away the slow fleeting moments, and slacked her thirst at gushing fountains where she dreamed no mortal had yet partaken of thereof. Imagine her surprise. Innocent and unsuspecting, she meets a stranger, the serpent, who had beheld her beauty, for Eve at this unlucky hour was not arrayed in habiliments of one style. She felt lonely and was surprised to meet this handsome stranger amidst the solitude of Eden's bower. Knowing little of this world save her own innocence, and unaware of the great gulf that lay between God and the fallen races that preceded her, she listened with attentive ear to the enchanting conversation of the son of perdition. So, it sounds like he's saying there that the black man that was created first messed up. He did something and caused them to be ousted out somewhere. Great gulf that lay between God and the fallen races that preceded it. So it sounds like he's hinting that they did something wrong, so they were like ousted out of the presence of God. These fallen races, they did something, sinned or something, so they were moved on. She had no idea about them. She listened with attentive ear to the enchanting conversation of the son of perdition. He belonged most assuredly to the highest order of the inferior races, around whom our Heavenly Father had thrown the benign influences of his exalted nature. It sounds like he's like saying, well, don't think I'm prejudiced or racist or biased to these other Negroes, blacks, etc. But then he sort of turns it around. It seems like that, right? That he actually is being a little prejudiced. But then again, he might say somewhere else, well, I'm not saying that, get rid of that idea, because that's not what I'm saying. Okay? He belonged most assuredly to the highest order of the inferior races, around whom our Heavenly Father had thrown the benign influence of his exalted nature, and had offered time and again to make them sons of and priests unto God. And they rejected the proffered mercy, and in the same language we may reasonably presume he addressed those idolaters, as he did in after years address a more enlightened and favoured people, when he declared, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how often would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chickens, or her chicks under her wings, and ye would not." Who was the serpent that beguiled our first parents? In our language it could not be the snake, or the viper that besets our pathway, and strikes into our flesh the fangs that bring death by the venom infused into the system. By no means. Does the adder speak, or does the boa constrictor give utterance to language? Preposterous thought. The fall of man as revealed to us in Genesis is no metaphor. Consider, kind reader, a venomous reptile approaching a lovely maiden to hold gentle converse in the silent wood. Would she take the accursed reptile to her bosom and associate with him day after day and week after week? Never. Even though his hissing voice had the melody of the enchanting siren, his shape as demeanour in aping a deceiver would carry with it the nauseating venom, at which the native modesty and timidity of the first Caucasian damsel would have revolted, and she, like the affrighted hare before its pursuers, would have fled from its presence and sought refuge under the protection aegis of her lord. Then tell us not that the devil approached our first mother in the form of a snake, as seen in the so-called sacred pictures of the passing age, all the artistry, artist impressions, all that sort of stuff. So it sounds like he's going back to pointing the finger at a black man, an inferior fallen race. It's what it seems to be hinting at. But he did present himself to Eve in the form and likeness of a man, one of Mongolia's comeliest sons. Okay, got a footnote indication there. Mongolia, a country of Asia and a part of the Chinese Empire, not far distant from the Garden of Eden. Mongolian, one of the divisions of mankind and belonging properly to the Turanian family, of whom we shall speak more at length. The author would speak more at length in its proper place. So this inferior being looked like one of the descendants of Genghis Khan, the Mongols, something like that, right? Or Genghis Khan. Yeah, it looked like a Mongol. Okay, this guy could be getting a bit far-fetched here. He came possessed of all the attributes of the evil genius of perdition, clothed from head to heel with the accumulated curses of an avenging God. He was an idolater, and had no pleasure in the service of his Creator, and there was but one pair in existence at that time who were altogether innocent, and meekly trusted in the promises made to them by the great first cause, and that pair was our first parents. And are we surprised at the malignity and duplicity practised upon those innocent victims, when we reflect that in this impostor was concentrated the vile essence of accumulated guilt, which had been increasing in intensity, and was now ready to culminate and throw its pale of darkness over the fair race so recently ushered into existence. Lest the reader may think it unimportant and not refer to the passages alluded to, the author quotes verbatim Matthew 23:33, "Ye serpents, ye generation of vipers, how can ye escape the damnation of hell?" Well, he's actually talking about the Pharisees, isn't he? He's pointing fingers at the Pharisees. We here, according to the writer, observe that serpents are applied to individuals, as of old to the Mongolians, the party who addressed Eve in her rambles amid the embowered shades of her rural paradise. He came from his ambush with the venom of the fiery serpent, with manly form, stately and erect, with that suavity of manner which age and experience have perfected, and with the wily paraphernalia which the adroit expert puts on when he proposes to throttle his unsuspecting victim. So this really goes against the biblical scriptures, the Americanized English translations, etc., and also the original ancient, very old Tab Asheret manuscripts in the language, sacred language of God spoken by God to Adam and Eve. The Lishana Atika Saprea, the old tongue, and the Hebrew, the original ancient, very old Tab Ivri, or Hebrew, original Hebrew, and possibly the Koine Greek. Yeah, this is interesting, but it's kind of you're not too sure about this one, right? It goes against both those manuscripts and those latter copies of copies of copies of copies of copies of a copy, right? Translated into English and put out there in the world, be it NIV, KJV, or whatever. Okay, so he came from his ambush with the venom of the forest serpent, with manly form, stately and erect, with that suavity and manner which age and experience have perfected, and with the wily paraphernalia which the adroit expert puts on when he proposes to throttle his unsuspecting victim. They met often and lingered long in some solitary shade by rural fonts, where a human eye could not detect or make afraid. And this gay deceiver, that means Mary, he wasn't a homosexual or anything like that, this gay deceiver, or joyous deceiver, spoke of the germ in the human heart where affection springs, and of the daughters of men that were fear, and of love with its operations on the tender heart, and said, partake of the forbidden fruit. Then shall your eyes be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. Eve, poor woman, yielded to the evil machinations of this seductive deceiver. She rose from the mossy couch, a wiser but a fallen creature. So there's a lot of vines and grass, all that sort of stuff there. Soft, like bedding type thing, right? She returned to the presence of her lawful companion, disrobed of virtue, that precious jewel, the brightest ornament of her sex. And what is she hinting at? What are they hinting at? Her gift, right? As a woman, untouched. It has a... She never had a man before. Down here it has because it has a footnote indication. It says, Milton, in his Paradise Lost, in describing the effect of the forbidden fruit upon our first parent, says, but that false fruit for other operation first displayed, carnal desire inflaming he on Eve, began to cast lascivious eye, she him, as wantonly repaid. In lust they burn, till Adam thus gan Eve to dalliance move. Okay. So she was seduced by the so-called Mongolian who tempted her. He used these words from the fact that in every land where idolatry is the prevailing religion, we find the depraved heart bowing down and serving graven images, representing gods which are formed and fashioned after the unholy passions of the worshippers themselves, whom they endow with imaginary wisdom and power and greatness far superior to that possessed by mortal man. And from the exuberance of his heart he expressed these views to his attentive victim. These were the gods to whom he had reference, ever forgetful of the only true and living God who is creator of all. From this intercourse or intimacy that subsisted between this son of perdition and the fair consort of Adam arose the mongrel offspring who bears in the Bible record the name of Cain, the vile monster who watered the earth with the blood of his brother Abel. View him as the descendant of the Asiatic nomad or pre-Adamite. Isn't he just being like a fascist there or a racist there or something? He's been prejudiced and biased, putting the blame on this race of Mongols or these Mongols. Okay, and we are not surprised that his offering was rejected by the Lord, or that the inherent instincts of his nature should find vent in the lifeblood of so near a relative. So that's talking about the sacrifice required by Cain and Abel. God was not pleased with Cain's sacrifice because obviously it was of the ground, his fruits, vegetables, whatever, and the ground was cursed. Okay, he knew what to do. He should have gone and asked Abel, his brother, for one of his fatlings, one of his young sheep or something, as a sacrifice, the required sacrifice. But no, he rebelled, thought he knew better, and so forth. Okay, so Cain's sacrifice was rejected by the Lord, or that the inherent instincts of nature should find vent in the lifeblood of so near a relative. His anger. Okay. So he kills his brother, right? And in consequence of this deed, the vengeance of high heaven was visited upon this fratricide, or Cain, right? This guy who did this. Genesis 4:13-17. And Cain said unto the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, or look, take note, God, you've driven me out of your presence this day, from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid. Or that particular region, right? And I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that everyone that findeth me shall slay me. So he's gone to this other land. He's pushed into this other land. So he's, oh, damn, God, I'm out of your presence, so I'm not under your protection. I'm not going to be able to commune with you, etc., etc. That's bad. Okay, even worse is I killed my brother. Got to live with that for the rest of my life. But you're sending me, pushing me into this other land, the land of Nod. There's people there that if they find me, they'll kill me. But God says not so. He puts a mark on them. Anyway, touches them. Payback is like 70 times 70, etc., according to the scriptures. So he goes in there and he finds himself a wife, etc., etc., builds a town or a city, and he goes on from there. And the unholy line emerges, etc. So Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod, wandering on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife. That means that he found one, and then he slept with her, right? And she conceived. There you go. She had a child from that result, right there, intercourse, and bare Enoch. So in the original ancient, very old Brita, it actually says Enos, or something different, right? And then someone later on in the genealogy list of Brita or Genesis in English says Enos. So we're not too sure if they actually wrote it wrong. Okay, but it looks like there's two different people there. That's Enoch, the one of the Gnostic texts, right? We're pretty sure that's that one. Okay, so according to this, he's the son of Cain. He's actually Seth's son. Is it? Yeah, okay, hang on. Seth had Enosh. That's right. Yeah. And this Enoch comes later. Okay, so there could be translation error there. Okay, yeah, we're pretty sure that it's written that Eve named him Enosh because God gave her another child, another man, in replacement for Abel that Cain had killed. Yeah. Okay. Seth. Yeah, she had a son called Seth, which means, basically that God gave her a replacement man or son because Cain killed Abel, and then Seth had a son called Enosh, and then they all started to call on the name of the Lord, right? And then eventually an Enoch was born to, say, Irad or somebody like that, right? Further on in the Genesis genealogy list, lineage list. Okay, so Cain knew his wife, etc., etc. Why did Cain fear that he should be regarded as a fugitive and a vagabond? And whom did he apprehend would find him and slay him? Because Christians have told us we used to go to church or whatever, attend a church. There's only Cain. Was only Adam and Eve. Cain and Abel. Cain killed Abel. That's it. Nobody else. Yeah. Okay. So how do you explain that? He's frightened. Cain's frightened out of the presence of God and ousted into the land of wandering, or the land of Nod, and there's other people there. If they found him, they would kill him. A lot of people say, oh well, that's like other people were like the sons of Enosh, Seth, Enos, etc. Before he got there. That doesn't work out, because if you have a look at the actual scriptures, it doesn't talk about other children in between the conversation of God and Cain, right? It's not until he goes into the land of Nod and he meets this wife and these other people there, because she's probably of the Neanderthals or Cro-Magnon or whoever they were, these pre-Adamites, right? So he meets her there, finds her there, gets with her, does a wild thing, and has a child to her, okay? Or children to her. Okay, and then it says in Scripture, Adam and Eve got back together, and then she had this. She was gifted this replacement son called Seth, because Cain had killed Abel. She's given another son by God. So that was supposed to be the start of their holy line, right? But they eventually turned their back, left their rightful place, and so forth, and went with the daughters of the men of an unholy line, Cain's line probably. Okay, so if you found this really interesting, we'll leave it there. Okay. If you like this video, what we've brought you, then subscribe to us, give us a like, add your comments, and we'll get back to you on those as soon as we can. And then go share this revealing video, this revealing book, with all your family, friends, church friends, mosque friends, your neighbours, and everybody else out there. Okay, but keep in mind, this is not what we are saying, this is what we're reading. Okay, so we're not anti-Semitic, we're not prejudiced, racist, fascist, etc., etc., not of Christian identity, anything like that. So please don't come at us with that, because we're just reading this thing, right? According to what this guy is claiming, okay, and exposing it, because there's a lot of rubbish out there that's been said like this, right? Okay, saying that it wasn't Satan, it wasn't a serpent, it wasn't a snake, etc. It was this Mongol or whatever, right? This other race, this pre-Adamic race, wasn't the Cro-Magnon man, as in the original ancient Tab Esheret Brita, right? Pre-Adamic man, created in God's image. It was this other bunch of human beings that did something wrong, so they became inferior, and then they're ousted off somewhere, right, out of the picture, and then this second lot of human beings were created, and they had this Holy Spirit and could commune with God and all this sort of stuff, right? And then they eventually fell because of this Mongol. Yeah, this is just this guy's opinion, right? What he claims, it's not necessarily true. And again, we're not prejudiced, biased, anti-Semitic, racist, whatever, We're just reading what this guy says in this particular book. We could do a part 2. We might just read it for a while, because it's kind of worrying us a bit here, because one minute he's like pro-African, pro-black, and then he switches it, and he's pro-Caucasian, and he switches it, and he's anti-Mongolian, and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, we're not too sure on this guy. We might go check him out, see what's the history behind this guy, and you might find that he's actually, some supremacist. Behind the scenes, he's probably of Christian identity or something like that. We don't really know, but we'll probably have a look and see what he was like